Alright guys, welcome to the Octagon Oracle Fight Night Allen versus Costa full card breakdown. Since a lot of you guys want the summary of last week, we'll start with that this time, and then we'll get into the breakdown from there. How are you guys doing? For specific thoughts on the fights, I'll say that as we get to each fight since we're doing all of these. I'm sad, thank you, Valid. Alright, we'll just start off pretty quickly then. So, starting with Carpenter versus Ochoa. I mean, Ochoa's good. I expected him to win, of course, but I did expect Carpenter to get like at least a few takedowns, establish some control, and then Ochoa just need to work as Carpenter tried to get into like mount or something, and then get back to the feet and punish from there. Ochoa basically maintained control the entire fight. I do feel like he made a few questionable decisions that stopped him from getting the finish, but it was still an extremely dominant performance, and I mean, you could have argued 30-26. I think it was officially given a 30-27, whatever it was. So he definitely needs to fight up the rankings. He's like a top 7 guy right now, I would guess. In another year or two, he could probably be like top 4, top 3. He definitely needs some maturing, but he has the time. He's going to be a menace at this weight class. All right. Susurkayev did what Susurkayev seems to always do. It's always anticlimactic. He's just not very good. He's very talented though, so he's able to produce the finishes regardless of what happens during the fight. But like, dude was getting hit with pretty much everything that Jordan Santos threw. And then Susurkayev was having the larger moments just because he has power that Santos doesn't. And of course, luckily he got the finish in the last minute, because I gave out the free bet of doesn't go the distance, and that one stressed me a bit to say the least. But yeah, I don't know. Susurkayev, it feels like maybe he'll lose the next one, maybe he'll lose like 2 after this, but it's just not, yeah, I don't know. He's excessively arrogant for someone whose skills are just not there. Anyways. Out Sabatini versus William Gomez. This is the only fight on the card which was like pure trash. The skills were there from both of them, but we had a ref that didn't want to separate at all. And yeah, I mean, that just made for one of the most anticlimactic fights of all time, because Sabatini couldn't get a takedown. Gomez couldn't get off the fence. Sabatini decided to hug him to a decision. Like, this is worse than say, like, Islam just holding JDM on the ground for 5 rounds, because even though that was boring, this was literally just holding him against the cage and nothing else. So, partially the ref's fault for not breaking it. Obviously, ideally, you would want Gomez to be able to get off the fence. I mean, I got my Sabatini by decision prediction right, but it's one of those predictions where it's like, yeah, I would not have minded if Gomez flatlines him in the last minute, because I don't want to see fights like that. It's not fun. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to cut Sabatini off of multiple well, I wouldn't say this was dominant, but the other ones were dominant wins. But, you know, yeah, he's getting kind of old, and he's really boring, so yeah, I wouldn't mind if they cut him, actually. Never mind. Kopylov versus Tulio. I mean, fair play to Kopylov for getting back in the winner's circle, because I didn't think he necessarily would after he dropped like 2 fights very embarrassingly. But he has some of the worst finishing instincts I've seen. Like, you drop a dude twice and then you decide to just clinch him for the rest of the round. Very strange. Tulio, even though he's fun, I mean, I was talking about this in the breakdown, his defense is just abysmal, and he's so slow that he gets punished for it. It's like, whenever you see Tulio fight, there's like the concept of what Tulio is, and then there's what Tulio actually is. And he's just so lumbering that it's just like, he can't do well at a certain point. I feel like CLD, probably a little worse than we thought he was. So now that we know that as well, it brings Tulio getting knocked out in that fight down even further as well. And Kopylov is good, he just doesn't pull the trigger enough. So it took like until late round 2 for Kopylov to capitalize on like the many openings that Tulio gives. So I can't say I was overly impressed with either of them here. I mean, Kopylov still obviously deserves to be in a prospect, I guess you would say, although he's getting old to be a prospect, but you get what I mean. But yeah, I'm not too high on either of them. Miller versus Jared Gordon. So I will say this, right? algorithm had Jim Miller winning. And specifically, it had Jim Miller winning by first round sub. And as you guys could tell, I didn't necessarily believe it because I picked Gordon by decision. Algorithm was very much more accurate than I was this time because the fight played out literally exactly as it put, like to the letter. So, fair play to Miller for at 43 years old, just eviscerating someone who's supposedly good. And fair play to the algorithm for getting that correct because I was not expecting that. Gordon is one of those guys who everyone thinks is better than he is because of the Paddy fight, right? Like, Paddy is not good. We know that now. Gordon beating him in still what was a somewhat close fight is not something you want to see. If Gordon was actually good, he would have just destroyed Paddy realistically. Miller sub round 1 was paying 26-1. Yeah, exactly. It's like, that was absolutely insane. And a lot of people in the server hit that, so the small promo before we do the actual promo later, join the server for bets like that because the new algorithms are ridiculous. Anyways, moving on to Grant Dawson versus Martusz Rebecki. Okay, so not to go into detail for those of you who know what happened with Dawson and why he was emotional in this fight, you could tell he was emotional in this fight. I'm just going to say that. Good on him for getting it done regardless, but he definitely wanted a knockout more than was what was logical, and it seemed to be because of what happened before the fight. So he toughed his way through that whole thing, and yeah, I mean, it's like, he was fun this fight, right? A lot of Grant Dawson fights, the criticism is that he's boring. I mean, almost knocked out Rebecki in round 1, was brawling in round 2, and round 3 finally got the takedown and went for the finish again there. Rebecki is one of those guys who's really fun, but he's just not that high level. And despite that, he almost won this. I mean, Grant Dawson's chin is not spectacular to say the least. But yeah, I mean, Rebecki's just, he's a brawler. That's it. He's reached his cap. He's not really going to go any further. Dawson is a guy who, like him or hate him, he has top 5 potential if he dials a few things in. He doesn't have that much longer. He is getting a little up there in age, but he has like another year or 2 years to really start trying to make a run. So his grappling is very good when he decides to use it. His striking, a little questionable, but he is looking a little sharper, let's say. But yeah, we'll see what he gets next. All right. Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. So I have such mixed feelings about Amosov. I can't figure out if he's good or not. And, like, yes, obviously, per his UFC results, he hypothetically should be good. It's just, I don't know, like, every time I think he might be good, like the what's his name? Jason Jackson or whatever his name is, that fight plays in my head where Amosov just got absolutely eviscerated by someone who's nowhere near UFC level. And I have a hard time thinking Amosov is good. It could be that he is just legitimately improved since then, even though it wasn't that long ago, and he's doing better now, or it could just be that he's getting fortunate matchups, and I don't know which it is, because Alvarez is one of those guys who just can't really stuff a takedown for his life. So, I don't know if Amosov is good or if he's getting fortunate matchups, but let's give him someone, yeah, as you were saying, maybe a lot, something like that, and we'll see what happens from there, because I do want to see what happens when he fights someone who can stuff a takedown, because he's fought 2 guys who are literally notorious for having terrible takedown defense. Gaudier versus Diaz. I mean, obviously Gaudier was minus 1100. We saw what's supposed to happen when you're minus 1100. Beyond that, I'm very unimpressed with Gaudier still. He showed 0 improvements in cage cutting combinations. He couldn't figure out that he was supposed to go to the body for a full round, even though Diaz was literally like at the highest of high guards of all time. So yeah, I mean, Gaudier will probably win 1 to 2 more and then get like flatlined by someone absolutely random because he's just not very good. All right. Bobby Green versus Jeremy Stevens. Yeah, I mean, after Jeremy Stevens missed weight by 5 pounds, it's like, did he even train for the fight? I mean, like, I know they're the same age, but Jeremy Stevens' last 5 fights we can see are interesting, let's say. So, yeah. Yeah. There's nothing to say. Like, a good performance from Bobby, but yeah, you should be doing that to a 40-year-old who missed weight by 5 pounds because he probably didn't even train for the fight. All right. Sean Brady versus Buckley. So I don't know what happens with the betting odds before the fight. A lot of people have asked me. I saw the swing the same time you guys did. I tried to get information. All I was able to find was like rumors about a potential like injury re-aggravation for Brady and such. But it seems like either that was just completely false or he just fought through it. One or the other. I genuinely don't know. To be fair, he could have been injured and it wouldn't have mattered because Buckley still is not good at anything. Buckley's like one of those guys I want to like, but his striking sucks. Like, for a striker, his striking is just abysmal. He has no accuracy. He just wings shots with very little defense and very little accuracy whatsoever. And of course, his grappling defense, like, okay, he stuffed the first takedown and then didn't stuff a single takedown after that. So I don't know how he was training takedown defense for an entire year or whatever the hell it was, and couldn't stuff more than a single takedown the entire fight. Brady's a good wrestler, but he's a better grappler than a wrestler. So you should be stuffing some takedowns from Brady. Buckley's just, I won't lie, at this point he probably just got to call it quits because he doesn't have time to reach the level he would need to, or he has to like completely change gyms, go to like, I don't even know where he would have to go, but change everything up in his entire life, or just give it up right now because he's not going any further the way he is right now. Buckley legit said he trained for wrestling by practicing boxing. I mean, to be fair, I couldn't even tell he practiced boxing based off that performance because Brady was even outstriking him on the feet. All right, so everyone has the question of, was this a robbery? Was it not? I will say, too close of a fight to be a robbery. I thought Waldo won because he did have the bigger moments in round one, and all Volkov really had was a bunch of calf kick spam. So I do feel like by the scoring criteria, it should lean towards Waldo in round one. Now, the bigger problem is that the judges gave Volkov round 3. It wasn't a round 1 issue with the scoring. And round 3 was the clearest round by far. So that's like one of those things where it takes like, oh, this was a close fight, not a robbery, to, well, it's kind of a robbery if you gave Volkov round 3. So I don't really know what to say about that. Because round 3 was super dominant. Round 1 was close, and Costa only had like a few big moments, but he did have a few moments. So I don't know, not an impressive win from Volkov. I don't even know what you do with either guy from here because it was just one of those fights where you're not impressed with either of them. Yeah, 32-7 is insane. Yeah. I mean, again, you can say Volkov won the fight, but I wouldn't say it was clear because all he really did in round 1 was calf kick spam. And it's very hard to give someone a round of calf kick spam unless it's like visibly causing the opponent to have issues, because just pure the scoring criteria, calf kick spam does not score very highly. So that's just how it's written. Okay, so to the interesting one, Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira. Now, I will say this fight played out nothing like I expected, even if Josh Van were to win. Because the fight I was expecting would be, can Taira establish the takedowns? And my thought was, okay, Van does have a very high takedown defense percentage, and he has been evolving there. So if Van's going to win, it's probably through stuffing all of Taira's takedowns or stuffing almost all of them, and then just winning on the feet, of course. And for Taira, it was like, okay, you're probably going to fail 3 takedowns, but then you'll get one, and you can probably end the fight from there, which is why I, of course, ended up picking Taira. I was not expecting Van to have no takedown defense, but Taira to have no ability to end the fight on the ground. Like, they both failed in the categories that I expected them to do well in, and did well in the categories I expected them to fail in, which was very strange. So before this fight, my thought was, okay, if Van somehow beats Taira, I'll 100% pick him against Pantoja. But after watching the fight, well, I still will probably just the slightest lean Van, unless I see something in tape when I do it again. I don't know. Because Taira lost mainly because he was way too ambitious here. Like, when you pass to full mount, Mount is a lot easier of a position to lose in modern MMA than something like half guard and such. Pantosia's a lot more content to just camp half guard. And we've seen that against Raval and so on. So I could see Pantosia just deciding, you know what, I had an injury in my last fight, let me just get the takedown and camp half guard. I don't think Pantosia's takedowns are quite as good as Tyra's at this point. So I am still going to probably on the 50-50 lean Van. But we'll have to see what happens, and that's going to be a more interesting fight than I thought it would be. Van definitely did a good job at getting up from Mount, so not going to take that away from him. But it was very strange because, again, he couldn't stuff a single takedown until Tyra was very damaged. So yeah, the title picture is very interesting there now. All right. Now for the relief of the card. Strickland's pulled it off again as a over plus 400 underdog. It's actually kind of crazy. I mean, the fight went exactly how would you expect in a Strickland win, right? Strickland had much better BJJ than Drake, as that was never a question. And I don't know why people were pretending like Chimaev was going to be able to just absolutely walk through Strickland in a way that no one else could before. Like, Strickland has a BJJ background. So if Chimaev was going to catch a sub, it would have had to be in a weird scramble. It wasn't going to be like, oh, he just established his dominant position and can end the fight from there. So Strickland was able to, of course, scramble the entire first round. By round 2, this is another weird thing. I mean, yeah, you have a lot of people coping online, all of that stuff. Chimaev has always had terrible cardio. And that's not something that's fixable, right? Because it's the same thing as McGregor. They're both very fast twitch muscle. So if they are going to use their energy, they're going to blow their energy and then basically be done after that. So Chimaev went for it in round 1, tried to get to the point where he could establish position and get the finish from there. Wasn't able to do it. Is doing it against a much slower twitch guy who can keep up that pace for 5 rounds. Strickland's going to be completely fresh in round 2. Chimaev is dead exhausted, has to pull guard and try to recover the entire round. So Strickland's, yeah, I mean, round 3 was closer than I would have liked, but Strickland clearly took it because he had 15 or 20 more strikes or something. And while Chimaev was doing a good job at using the takedown threat to do a little better on the feet than he was supposed to be, and which is how he ended up taking round 4, he just did not have the gas to beat Strickland over 5 rounds. This is going to be a problem regardless of who Chimaev fights. If they can scramble at all, if they have the same BJJ ability as Strickland, and they have better cardio, he is probably going to lose a 5-round fight to them. He could win a 3-round fight for sure. Like Chimaev versus Khaos, in a 3-round fight, very heavily favors Chimaev, I believe. In a 5-round fight, probably starts to favor Khaos. That being said, I think that Chimaev's not going to fight Khaos. I think he's probably just going to go up to 205 because his team is screaming about how he is only going to fight Strickland. I mean, if they actually give Chimaev the rematch, that would be ridiculous with how long Imavov has been on ice. Imavov definitely needs to get the next title shot. Arguably, pure merit-wise, you could argue that Imavov should have gotten it before Strickland. Obviously, Strickland, I don't think Imavov was going to be able to beat Chimaev, where Strickland obviously did, so good matchmaking in that sense. But yeah, now we need to see Strickland versus Imavov too. But good on Strickland and his team. They're always outperform what he is supposed to, which is pretty amazing to see in all honesty. All right. Now we'll get into the breakdown for this card. Starting with Shauna Bannon versus Nicole Cagliari. So, Bannon is kind of like a karate striker, I guess. She doesn't really keep the full stance, but she strikes and kind of moves like she is one. She'll throw a lot of side kicks on the outside. She'll sometimes jump in with a jab or a 1-2. She'll sometimes also just blitz randomly. She does get taken down pretty easily, but on the ground she will just constantly attack the armbar. Her defense is mainly distance management, and her defense otherwise, including her takedown defense, just doesn't really exist. Cagliari is very well rounded in that she is pretty much equally bad at everything. On the feet, she throws calf kicks on the outside or just wings hooks in the pocket. She'll shoot a variety of takedowns, but isn't good at any of them. On the ground, she will technically hunt for submissions, but is extremely bad at it. She doesn't have any defense from anywhere. I know this is a very low-level fight all around, but I was surprised that there was like a somewhat sizable favorite in Cagliari. I'm going to take Bannon to win by decision, because I don't really know what Cagliari can do. Like, I guess she could just get the takedowns and hold Bannon down the entire fight, but I just see a bit more of a path to victory for Bannon of the two low-level strategies. So yeah, Bannon by decision, and we'll just move on from there, because that's a very weird fight to pick. All right, moving on to Daniel Perez versus Luis Gruele. So Perez is mainly an offense-focused boxer. He wants to just pressure forward and throw combinations constantly. He is good at ripping to the body and then switching to the head mid combo. On the outside, he will just mainly throw calf kicks. If the stand-up isn't going well, he will try to change it up with double leg takedowns and get to the back from there. Overall, he really does use offense as his defense, so if the fight starts going badly, it starts going very badly for him. Gruele is a volume striker. He doesn't really push a crazy pace, but he is constantly going to throw techniques out there. He will throw a fair number of teeps on the outside, then try to move forward with combinations. He will take the takedown if it's there, but he's not really good at getting the takedowns unless his opponent like very badly overexposes. He does have, I've said this in the past, a very pretty style, but it's not effective. So there's definitely a big difference between the two. He's very open in the pocket for explosive movements and is not very explosive himself, which is why he's gotten caught by the more explosive fighters in Aguilar and Osborne and so on. I'm going to lean towards Perez to win by TKO here. I think he's just the faster, more powerful fighter. I think he's also actually the more technical offensive boxer. So I think that Gruele needing to kind of push forwards and fight in the pocket is not going to be good against Perez, who's going to have the better hand speed here and be more capable of ending the fight. All right, moving on to Alice Ardelean versus Poliana Viana. So Ardelean is basically just a boxer brawler type of style. She is effectively going to walk forwards the entire fight and throw in combinations. She will mix up body to head mid combination, but she will keep her hands low for some reason, so she can just be hit because of that. She is one of those fighters who just likes to fight, so she doesn't mind getting hit, and she will keep the same pace for 15 minutes. Viana is a pretty well-rounded finisher. All of her UFC wins have come by finish, and I'm thinking all of them have come in round one, but I'm not as positive about that. On the feet, she'll kick a lot on the outside, then blitz in and try to deal damage there. She's very willing to go to the ground, whether she's on bottom or top. She will pull guillotine and constantly go for arm bars off of her back. She does rely on her offense being scary to defend herself, so she can definitely be hit if you just do throw back at her. Her biggest issue is she does slow down heavily after round one. She is very dangerous in round one, but as long as you survive that, you will probably win the fight. And because of that, I will be picking Ardelean by decision. Viana's probably round one or bust here. It wouldn't shock me if she did get the finish, but I don't think she will, and Ardelean's pressure should break her down after that. All right, moving on to Cody Brundage versus Andrei Petroski. Okay, so starting with Brundage. Brundage is primarily a wrestler, but he does definitely have a lot of power in his hands. He mainly shoots on blast doubles and then tries to throw heavy ground and pound from there. On the feet, he tends to explode in with overhands and hooks. Sometimes he definitely gets punished for the naked calf kicks he threw. Against Bakhanako, he got somewhat dropped, somewhat off balance because of that. He's not really terrible anywhere, but he's also not spectacular anywhere either. And as the fight goes along, he just tends to mentally check out a little bit, it feels like. Petroski is a control-oriented wrestler, but he does also carry a lot of power on the feet. He tends to throw single strikes at a time. He'll throw like a calf kick, a check hook, a cross, etc. No real combinations whatsoever. He is very slow, so his defense on the feet kind of sucks, and he has no durability. He can get knocked out by pretty much everything, including his own takedown attempt. He tends to shoot on single legs and then use his strength to create the takedown from there. On the ground, he will posture for submissions, but typically just ends up controlling. Tough fight to pick because neither is very reliable, but I mean, all like deep analysis aside, I feel like the prediction has to come down to one of these fighters has power, and the other got knocked out by his own takedown. So I'm going to say Brundage to win by TKO here, as much as that stresses me out to pick. All right. Moving on to Ketlen Vieira versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. So, Ketlen Vieira is a low volume but heavy-handed striker. She is generally pretty immobile. She wants her opponent to come in so she can try to just like wing hard counters. If her opponent circles on the outside and doesn't enter, she'll slowly try to edge them off and then blast a 1-2. She doesn't shoot very often, but she will take opportunities to get the fight to the ground if it is just clearly presented. She is very heavy on top and will generally just hold position. She'll take submission if it clearly presents itself, but that's pretty much it. Because she is so low volume, she tends to just be outpointed in her losses. Cavalcanti is a boxer who basically just throws in a few kicks. She'll test her range on the outside by using calf kicks and popping out the jab. Once she is comfortable, she'll start to throw in longer combinations in the pocket, and then she'll slide out of range to avoid the return from there. She is very defensively responsible, as you could see by her defensive percentages. She's not the heaviest hitter by any means, but she is a very good technician. So I do think Cavalcanti should just win the volume game here and take a decision fairly easily. Ah, nice, the fight that we don't have any pictures for. So for those of you who don't know, both are debuting fighters. Gantt was on the card. Minev, or Minev, I think it says in other places, his name is spelled differently every single time, was not on the card at all, and they just pulled him in last second debut. So, starting with, let's start with, where did I put my notes for this one? Oh, here we go. Okay, starting with Gantt. So, Gantt is basically just a pure wrestler. He's going to initiate the wrestling immediately, and like, by initiate the wrestling immediately, I mean he's literally just going to run at you and shoot or try to push you into the fence. Like, there is no striking setup here. Because of that, we have absolutely zero clue how his striking looks. He has power, we know that, but like if he has to stand at range for 30 seconds, I don't know how it's going to go. He will literally just chain wrestle until he has the takedown and just start running at you again and clinch if you get away. On the ground, he's very aggressive with ground and pound, and then we'll go into submissions from there. Minev is more of a wild striker. He throws almost entirely like overhands and hooks. He likes to time counters typically. He's not really pushing up pace. Minev has only fought like the tinnest of cans, and he took one to a majority decision, so it was not the best look. Minev doesn't seem to have any nuance in his game. I won't lie, I expected Gantt to open at like minus 700 here. I don't know if I'm missing something because obviously we don't have much tape on either of them, but I am going to take Gantt to win by submission here. And unless like there's some hidden tape of Minev progressing that I haven't seen, this honestly seems like a blatantly irresponsible matchup to make. I don't know what they're doing because he seemed so unimpressive on paper. Anyways, moving on to Tucos versus Ivan Erslan. Starting with Tucos. Tucos is a pure wrestler and grappler. He's extremely awkward on the feet. He very much does not like being there for long. He will throw out a few calf kicks and then some just random spazzy stuff to try to close the distance from there. He'll shoot on a single or double leg depending on the position, and then he will just grind until he can complete the takedown. On the ground, he is using ground and pound to advance position, then he'll look for the submission from there. He is actually surprisingly durable on the feet, even if he's not very technical. While he can be put away, it takes a fair number of clean strikes to do so. Moving on to Erslan. Erslan is a very heavy-handed boxer. He's going to move around on the outside and try to get his timing with jabs. When his opponent starts to move, he'll try to time a 1-2 counter. Generally speaking, he seems to be very knockout focused. Because he's a little bit slow, he's going to get behind on points, so he just wants to finish the fight whenever he can. Even though he has power, it doesn't seem like he has the same impact at the UFC level because he has landed clean and hasn't done much. He definitely seems to slow down a little bit later in fights, and when he moves forwards, he opens himself up to the takedowns like very substantially. He is good at scrambling, but he doesn't seem to have a great initial sprawl, so he does get taken down a fair amount. There's another fight like I don't want to pick, but obviously if I'm doing the whole card, I have to pick it. I'm going to pick Tucos by decision here. I just feel like Erslan gets taken down whenever his opponent wants a takedown. So Tucos should hypothetically not get knocked out and just get takedowns occasionally enough to probably edge out close rounds. Don't be surprised if we see a split decision or something like that. Like, this is one of those fights that's just going to be weird in my opinion. All right, moving on to Nikolay Veretennikov versus Khaos Williams. So Nikolay is a powerful kickboxer. He's usually going to start with calf kicks on the outside. He's willing to take his time to find an opportunity to explode in. But once he gets an advantage, he'll continue to pursue it. He really does like to counter with straight shots, but if he's engaging on his own, he'll typically either just blitz or wing hooks. He has much better offense than defense. He tends to keep his hands very low, and of course his takedown defense is like notoriously bad. If you want a takedown on him, you will get it. Williams is pretty much just a pure power puncher. He throws a lot of jabs to the body to try to set up his power. He likes to throw a 2-3 or counter with a winging overhand. He's so offensive focused that he could definitely get hit quite a bit, but on average his opponents don't want to stick around because one shot from him can end the fight. He does also have very questionable takedown defense. I don't really expect either of them to be shooting in this fight, so I don't think the takedown defense is going to matter. Another fight where it's like, do I want to pick a guy who's like 1-5 in the UFC, or do I want to pick a guy who just lost to whatever his name is, Andreas Gustafsson? I'm gonna very mildly lean Williams by TKO, because I just keep seeing him walking forwards with his hands down and just walking into like a wild overhand and going out cold. So very mildly into Williams by TKO, but it's another fight that I don't love in terms of quality or picking. All right. Moving on to Timmy Cuamba versus Bernardo Sopaj. So Cuamba is a kickboxer, but he is overall somewhat well-rounded. His only real weapon, though, is his speed. He has a very fast 1-2 and 3-2. He tends to move around on the outside and then try to time his striking entries from there. Because he does circle a lot, he is a little difficult to hit clean. If you can close the distance, though, his defense gets substantially worse because he is dependent on distance as a defense. His wrestling is mainly double leg oriented, and he will just try to control if he gets you down. He doesn't really have any fight-ending ability from there. Sopaj is a very fundamentally sound fighter. He has a good jab, and he'll pair it with calf kicks or head kicks depending on his opponent's stance. He doesn't always focus on wrestling, but when he does, he is quite skilled at it. He doesn't love to be pressured constantly, and sometimes he will like panic a little and start brawling in the pocket if he does. When he's on the front foot, though, he does a good job at using knees to discourage people from trying to enter the pocket. He does slow down a lot as the fight goes along, which is what makes picking him always nerve-wracking. Despite that, I am going to pick Sopaj by decision. I think he's just the more talented of the two. And because Cuamba is moving so much on the outside rather than pushing a pace, I don't think that Sopaj is going to slow down like he did in the other fights. So I do think that he is going to have the time and the space to be more technical here and win the decision. All right, promo time. If you guys are watching the video, that probably means you are an educated sports bettor and you are not just betting on random stuff and trying to lose money every week. If so, this betting service was made for people like you. Between the algorithms, the breakdowns I provide there, and the community structure, we have basically all the tools to turn you into a significantly more profitable bettor. It's only $25 a month, unlike a lot of other services. So if you guys are interested and you do want to have more profitable betting, feel free to click the link in the description here or DM me on Instagram with any questions. All right, this fight was made, I believe, literally today, so I have less information on it than the other fights, but I did get the chance to do some tape study. So moving on to Modestas Bukauskas, however you say his last name, versus Christian Edwards. So Modestas is a very blitz-heavy fighter. He throws some calf kicks on the outside, but then generally wants to use his speed and start throwing in the pocket. He doesn't really set things up, so he can be countered if his opponent is comfortable trying to exchange in the pocket. If blitzing isn't working, there's not much he can do. Like, he will counter with pure speed if he gets the opportunity, but otherwise all he has is like an attempt to switch to grappling. He does have decent takedowns, and on the ground he will land hard ground and pound and work towards a submission, but it's nothing overly remarkable. Edwards is the last-minute replacement here. He is a relatively well-rounded southpaw who does seem to prefer the grappling. He'll throw a few kicks on the outside, then try to enter with a 1-2 or an uppercut. On the inside, he'll usually look for the double leg, and then if he can get the fight down, he'll look for ground and pound from there. Just in all honesty, from what I've seen in the tape, Edwards does not seem like a UFC-level fighter. So I am going to pick Modestas by TKO here. All right, moving on to Malcolm Wellmaker versus Juan Diaz. So, Wellmaker is pretty much a one-punch knockout artist. He throws a lot of kicks on the outside to try to set up his hooks from there. Once you're starting to expect the kick, he will feint it and then catch you unaware with the hook. He will also, of course, use the hook as a counter as his opponent tries to come in. Everywhere else so far, he's a little bit underdeveloped because he's been so successful with the hooks. It's really hard to know how he's going to look now that he knows the hook can't fully carry him. Diaz is mostly a boxer, although he will throw some other stuff into the skill set as well. He likes to keep his hands down and relies a lot on movement. He'll throw a lunging 1-2 to try to cover distance. In the pocket, he'll throw hooks a little bit recklessly there and just try to use his speed. When he does shoot, it is usually on double leg, and he'll try to take the back from there. On the outside, he is typically just throwing the occasional calf kick, but nothing too intensive. He does also seem like he slows down pretty heavily in fast-paced fights. Now, I actually thought Diaz was younger, and I was thinking like, oh, okay, maybe we have to worry about him making rapid progress going into this fight. But he is older than I thought. And knowing that, and knowing that Wellmaker will also probably make progress because of his last loss, I'm going to pick Wellmaker by TKO here. I feel like Diaz keeping his hands down, especially as he enters, is just not the style you want against Wellmaker. Like, if he had spectacular head movements, maybe I would say otherwise, but it just feels like he's way too prone like to be getting caught with one of the massive hook counters. So as long as Wellmaker has improved at all, he should get the TKO here, and I mean, that was kind of indicative by the odds, realistically speaking. All right. Moving on to Dooho Choi versus Daniel Santos. So, starting with Choi. Choi is a well-rounded finisher. On the feet, he mainly throws calf kicks at range, then tries to jump in with a 1-2. Sometimes he will throw the cross to the body. He does a good job at changing it up a lot. When he does enter, he extends the combination with the left hook. He used to be a little bit more prone to brawling with hooks, but he's definitely toned it back a little. If you try to shoot on him, he looks for the guillotine to try to deter wrestling. He has started using his own wrestling more often now, and he has a variety of setups and finishes from there. Moving on to Santos. Santos is a high-volume combination striker. He basically just wants to stay in the pocket and box there constantly. He has good head movement and will just constantly slip and rip. On the outside, he throws a lot of calf kicks and spinning kicks. He will shoot takedowns to change things up. It is mainly double legs. It seems to be more of a recent addition. He used to just really want to strike, but now if he needs to, he will just literally spam takedown attempts. He's definitely like the stereotypical shoot-a-box fighter, where he wants to be constantly moving forward, pressuring you, and looking for the finish at all times. I am going to very mildly lean towards Santos by TKO here. I think that Choi's game, while dangerous, is just a little bit too predictable, and Santos is generally the cleaner fighter. So I think Santos will eventually find the kill shot, kind of similar how he did against Juseng Yu. Alright, moving on to the main event, Arnold Allen versus Costa. So, starting with Allen. Allen is a movement-based striker. He is a southpaw, and his biggest weapon is his cross. He will kind of like sling it as he jumps in. He does have a very diverse striking skill set, and he tries to adapt to his opponent's weaknesses. If his opponent shoots, he will usually try to go for the ninja choke to discourage takedown attempts, but otherwise he won't really grapple at all. When he does blitz, he is a little bit prone to getting caught there because he tends to drop his lead hand as he enters. He did change up his style for the John Silva fight, which is what makes this interesting, because he stayed in the pocket longer and he turned into a little bit more of like a boxer than, well, maybe in the past you could say he was a little closer to a karate stylist, though not quite. One of his biggest issues is he doesn't really have fight finishing power. His only like real TKO outside of an injury was the Dan Hooker one, and that was a very drained Hooker trying to make 145 when he had no business being there. So he has gotten several knockdowns in the UFC, but just not being able to finish fights puts him at a disadvantage compared to a lot of the new generation. Moving on to Costa. Costa is well-rounded, but he is definitely primarily a kicker. He throws a large variety of kicks and will change the target constantly. He will also switch stance to throw kicks if he doesn't like what he can do from his current stance. He is primarily a southpaw, so against orthodox fighters, he's very focused on the body and head kicks. Against southpaws, he's more focused on the calf kick. When he is punching, he does prefer to blitz in. He is very dynamic. He'll throw Superman punches, stuff like that, and he definitely can sub you off of his back if you do take him down. His defense can be a little bit questionable if you get past the kicks because he is so range-oriented. Now, this is a very good matchup in my opinion, because it is very difficult to pick. I am going to very mildly here lean towards Costa here. And the reason for that is that against Giga, we saw that even though Alan was able to win the fight, he couldn't cut off Giga at all because he was really worried about walking into the kicks. So he just ended up following him around for all 3 rounds. Giga gasses after round 1, so Alan was able to pick up rounds 2 and 3, but Melky doesn't gas that quickly, and he also has more dangerous hands than Giga in my opinion. So I don't really trust Alan's style to be capable of pressuring here, and when staying at range where Alan is most likely going to be looking to lunge in, Melky is just going to be the better fighter at that distance. Alan's, of course, the more tested fighter, so it's hard to be confident in Melky here by any means, but I am going to actually pick him by TKO. I think he's going to do a lot of damage to the calf early, and as we go into like round 2, maybe early round 3, Alan's going to get a little desperate, and Melky's probably going to find a big like head kick or something off of that. So, Melky by TKO, but I am very interested to see how this one goes. Another promo, if you guys are betting on cards like this, and you do actually intend to take betting at all seriously, do consider signing up for the betting service. The link is in the description below. The algorithms were profitable again last week and literally picked Jim Miller by first round submission, as crazy as that is. So the level at which the new generation of algorithms has been absolutely insane. So always looking forward to growing that community. Feel free to DM me with questions if you have on Instagram and such. And otherwise, I will get to questions here. The Melky title run will continue. Very possible. For Alan. Yeah, Alan has had a lot of rough matchups. It's unfortunate. I feel like he should go up to 155. Melk's high kicks won't work. Both are southpaw and Melk's grappling cannot compare. Melk will switch stances. It's not just he is listed as southpaw, but he is very open to throwing head kicks from different stances. Also, his grappling is definitely better than Alan's. Like, Alan has fine grappling, especially defensively, but offensively, Melky's is definitely better. Yeah, I think Alan's being fed to the wolves. Yeah, I agree. What's her martial arts background? How much do you know about the sport? Just curious. Mainly boxing and karate, and then I went into Muay Thai and other stuff from there. But my longest running are boxing and karate. Thoughts on Tyra, and do you think he's still the best flyweight? I think that if he were to rematch Van right now, the adjustment that you make for him is just don't go into mount. Because if he sticks in half guard, he probably wins a boring decision, honestly. Obviously, I know that he doesn't want to do it. If I was game planning for him and I had to say, like, okay, you're rematching right now, that's what I would do. So I think Tyra is still very capable because, I mean, obviously he was getting takedowns whenever he wanted to for a while. But he definitely needs to make adjustments, and he needs to get a lot better at punishing when he does have top position. What are your middleweight rankings now? I'd have to rerun that. Whenever we have another middleweight matchup, we'll see. Maybe a Milk Club and Sub Guillotine. It's possible. But I do think that if Melky gets a knockdown, it will probably be a knockout. Waldo got his karma for the Spivak robbery. That is true. Yes. I think it's highly possible that Imvav could chin Hamzat in the first exchange, seeing as Strickland all but him in round 2. I don't think that Hamzat's going to risk standing with Imavov at all, but if they have a few stand-up exchanges, I agree. Van versus Pantoja. I talked about this in the beginning, but I don't know. Because if Pantoja is just like, you know what, I'm coming off of an injury, I want to regain the belt, I don't care about being entertaining, he could arguably just go for the takedowns and try to half guard camp for 5 rounds, and it may work. Because Van's takedown defense was not encouraging in this fight. I am going to mildly lean Van because I don't think fighters come back the same after an injury. And Van's, I think that Tyra's wrestling may be better than Pantoja's at this point, so it's very hard to say. But yeah, I think it's a 50-50 leaning Van right now. Your background is in boxing, top 3 current boxers right now, Ilya, Van, Jan. That's a reasonable list, yeah. He's really got to work on his ground and pound his mount, by the way, Tyra or Kop, Mokaev. I think Tyra would beat Kop or Mokaev. So I don't think they have the same survivability on the ground. How hyped were you when Hamzat failed his takedowns in round 2? Oh, that was great. IG score Sean versus Hamzat. 48-47 Sean. How do you feel about the MVP card? I mean, in terms of entertainment, I can't see it's very, what would be the word? Intriguing. Loner is the worst matchup for Tyra and Van. Hot take. I think Loner is the worst matchup for Van. I'm not sure he's the worst matchup for Tyra, but maybe. Would you confidently pick Dreykus in a rematch with Minev? I honestly feel like DDP is the only guy I would pick confidently in a rematch. We got dominated that in the first fight. I mean, if I picked Dreykus in a rematch, it wouldn't be confidently, but would I pick him? Maybe. It's just the issue is that he doesn't have the background that Strickland does. Like, Strickland has been grappling a large majority of his life at this point. Dreykus has not. Dreykus was a kickboxer who started MMA after. So even though he likes to wrestle in his fights, it's improvised grappling. It's not like a lifelong grappling. So I'm not sure if he will close the gap, but it's possible. Thinking of which Cop versus Horiguchi. I think Horiguchi will probably win a decision there. DDP or Hamzat in the rematch? Honestly, I don't know. I would have to do tape on it. Who'd you pick for Cuamba versus Sopaj? I picked Sopaj decision. If you were a matchmaker, who would you match Adesanya up with next? Ara? That's a good question. Let me look at the rankings. Let's see. It has to be an actually useful one to the division. Honestly, I think you do Adesanya versus CLD. Because even though, like, Gregory Rodriguez, you could argue, deserves the fight up more than CLD does, I don't think it's going to be as good of a fight, because I think the Gregory Rodriguez fight will be a lot of, like, just wrestling attempts, where we know CLD is just going to strike with him for as long as the fight lasts. And the CLD fight is also winnable for either of them. Like, I don't think CLD is going to walk through Adesanya by any means. I could see Adesanya winning. Khamzat or Imavov? I'd probably pick Khamzat. How'd you expect Tyra versus Van to look on the feet versus how it turned out? I am surprised that Tyra didn't commit to more power shots, so that's the only thing that I think was weird. The calf kick was there, I expected that. Otherwise, it was mostly what I expected, except Tyra not sitting down on the right hand at all. Adaba Gaudier called out Izzy. I mean, you could do that. It's just, I mean, Gaudier will get knocked out and then it'll be stupid. Who you got between Shara and Adaba seems like a fun fight. Good question. I think I would very mildly lean Shara. Neither are particularly good, though. CLD genuinely has horrid fight IQ and takedown defense. True. I mean, I would say more takedown defense. Sorry, more fight IQ than takedown defense. He actually has like decent takedown defense when he decides to use it, but he'll put himself in such stupid positions that he can get taken down. DDP or Imvov? I'd probably mildly lean DDP. Paulo and Nikolay and Yuri versus Chimaev. I know you think Yuri beats him, but Paulo and Nikolay. It really depends on 3 or 5 rounds. I honestly think that over 5 rounds, all 3 of them beat Chimaev. Over 3 rounds, Chimaev would have a solid chance against any of them. Tyra's head movement is trust. Yes, that is definitely true. As Drake has figured out Strickland or can Sean make adjustments to DDP's head kicks, etc. It's always possible, but I would probably lean Drake in that fight if it happened again. Paragon. I got gone 48-47. He'll mix in wrestling and eye poke if needed. I think Pereira will knock him out within a few minutes. It's like Gantt is just not very good. DLD versus DC for the lowest fight IQ. Fair. What do you think of Tyra's IQ? I thought he fought in a very dumb way, especially the way he led Van up in round 2 was a amount. Yeah, it was not the best. I kind of understand why he fought the way he did, but he didn't make adjustments. Thoughts on movement specialists like Horiguchi and copying the style better to ban rather than a crap. I wouldn't really call Cop a movement specialist. I would say Horiguchi is one, yeah, but I wouldn't say Cop is one. That being said, I don't think that either of them would really beat Van because Cop relies too much on getting in a flow, which is going to be disrupted by someone who likes to pressure. And Horiguchi, I think, would end up getting countered as he can. Before calf kicks will win both on the fight. If Gantt gets miraculously good at defending them, how would you see the fight? Still same thing, right? Like, I think it will happen because of the calf kicks, but even if Gantt defends all the calf kicks, he's still worse everywhere else. Nikolay would destroy Chimaev. He's a nightmare matchup. Over 5 rounds, yes, but over 3 rounds, I could see it being like the Krylov fight, and I could see Chimaev taking it. Because I could see Chimaev basically being able to do what Krylov did in round 1 for 2 rounds. Alex could probably sub Gantt if you want. Yeah, for sure. Brendan Allen versus Ilya. I mean, Allen is just so low fight IQ at times, he'd find a way to get knocked out. Can you give us a rating on Khamzat? He isn't the world beater we all thought, but he could still run through many guys. Where do you rank? I mean, in terms of middleweight, he's still probably like, after Sean, probably like 1, 2. Maybe Kyle could beat him just stylistically, but that's probably it. I heard rumors that he was training with Noya in a way. Was he just getting beaten up there or what? Yeah, I have no idea. That was so strange. It's like you're training with Inoue and you can't move your head at all, really. Yuri would beat Hamza. Yeah, I agree. Ilya versus Gon. I'd still probably pick Ilya. Thoughts on Yuri versus Ulberg in a rematch? It's always going to be a 50-50 fight to me. Do you think people are sleeping on Eamon's chances against Sean? I know his brother helps him game plan. He's on a good streak. I mean, he's always going to have a chance, but also the reality is he's going to very close decisions with an old Cheeto, an old Aldo. And like O'Malley is a very different level of striking than a Cheeto. I think that realistically, Zahabi is probably the fight where O'Malley is a lot more comfortable pursuing a finish again. Because Zahabi is really not going to take him down. And even if he, for some reason, does start shooting and is able to take him down, he's not going to be able to hold him down. So O'Malley is going to be a lot more comfortable, like, looking for the power strikes, and he probably does get a knockout there. He said Gantt isn't good. Yeah, in any other division, Gantt wouldn't be ranked. He's not very skilled. After Hellroy, Val looked against Cop after taking so much damage from Van. I'm concerned Tyra will do any capable striker with solid ground game. I agree that Loner could be a problem. I don't think Urseg would be, because Urseg just isn't dangerous. Do you think Gon's speed and footwork will be problematic for Alex? Some people are making out to be. No. His footwork isn't even especially good. And his speed looks good for heavyweight, but it's not like he's not fast for any other division. God is not that good a striker, and his athleticism merchant that got dropped by Blob Tie. Yeah, agreed. And break down this early in the week. I've been trying to do Tuesdays. I don't think I was able to for like 2 weeks, but yeah, I'm trying to. Do you think Pantoja has a higher chance of getting to Van's back during his scrambles? I actually don't, but I think that Pantoja has a better chance of like intelligently adjusting and just staying in positions where he can maintain. In hindsight, how do you feel RDR and Fluffy would have done against Hamzat? You know, it's a good question. Because, well, my initial thought was like, both of them get into so much trouble that they'll probably both get finished. I still think RDR would get knocked out, not gonna lie. Because Chimaev has enough power on the feet to do that. Fluffy, on the other hand, now that's a more interesting matchup. Because I don't really think Fluffy's gonna get subbed in round 1. So in a 5-round fight, I could see like a Rodolfo Vieira type situation where Fluffy's in some tough situations, but he's able to survive and then win later. Like now that's much closer to a 50-50 fight than I originally thought. Like I think in a fight like that, Chimaev might close like minus 180, minus 200 type of thing. Usyk isn't dangerous, but he chin match. Oh yeah, 100%. Tyra will very likely KO Usyk on the feet. I mean, it's possible. Sandhagen is one of the most overrated fighters of all time. I don't quite agree with that. I mean, Sandhagen's very technically proficient. I just think sometimes he overthinks that. Gon's best wins are Ty, Spivak, and Lewis. Robs Volkov. He's legit only beaten fat blobs. Yeah, true. Would you still pick Tyra to beat Pantoja? I think so, but it's tougher now. You still think Tyra beats DJ? Yeah, realistically. I mean, like, I know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia towards DJ, but let's not forget that he was very, very nearly finished by Tim Elliott. Like, DJ did not have great takedown defense. He did not have, like, great submission defense. And, yeah. I mean, Pantoja would beat DJ, Tyra would beat DJ, Van would beat DJ. I mean, I wouldn't say Sandhagen has 0 elite wins. Like, let's see. Biggie win, you could say, is not elite by any means at this point. Cheeto win is fine. Sung Yadong went aged very well. He had a competitive fight with Jan. That's nothing to be ashamed of. He got robbed against TJ, so that's not like a massive problem. And then, like, other than that, yeah, I mean, he didn't get the chance to fight many other people of that level. I mean, his win over Bautista aged very well, though. Have a good night, Ilya. DJ also has terrible opinions on the sport. He said Chimaev won because he won 3 of the 4 categories on the stands they showed before the decision. Okay. That's certainly a take. Does Van beat everyone at flyweight? I mean, if he can beat Pantoja, well, okay. I think his worst matchup, as Owen mentioned before, is Kavanaugh. I think Kavanaugh is just a nightmare matchup for him. But I do think he has a solid chance of beating everyone else. I still think Pantoja fights 50-50-ish. I think Tyra with adjustments definitely could beat him. But there's no fight where I would be like, oh yeah, he's definitely losing, except maybe Kavanaugh. Is a 4-1 Strickland scorecard crazy? I mean, it's less crazy than scoring it to Khamzat, but I wouldn't personally do 4-1 Strickland. If Hackett beats Lewis, I feel like they make him versus Volkov. And he'll beat Volkov, to be honest. Like him or don't like him, he will beat Volkov. The Jackson podcast was coping for Khamzat, so it was hilarious. That's funny. How about John Dodson versus Tyra? Dodson has great takedown defense and has some powerful hands, which is a nightmare matchup for Tyra. I'd have to watch Dodson tape, honestly. How do you think JDM and Brady goes? I think at this point I'd have to lean Brady. Just like in terms of mentality. Prime Silva versus Strickland and Khamzat. Strickland and Khamzat. I mean, we saw Chael Sonnen and Ragdoll Silva for like 4.5 rounds. Khamzat surrounded by too many yes men. He really thought his only way to win was first round sub. I guess. I mean, I wouldn't say someone like Armin would be a yes man. Like, I don't like Armin, but I don't think he would say that. Van worst matchup is Manel. No, it's not, because Pop again relies too much on getting into a flow. Van's just going to move forwards and disrupt that. So I think Van would brutalize Cop. Is control grappling much less viable at 125? Seems like everyone scrambles much better. It's definitely harder. It's still viable, but it is harder for sure. Loner or Tyra, how does that go? Honestly, I would have to relook at Loner's takedown defense. Pretty well. Dalton's never been finished in that many fights. Yeah, agreed. Hackett versus Alex actually has a good chance of happening. That's hilarious thing about Valid. Flyweight is my favorite division right now. Welterweight is what about you, Oracle? Probably like literally just the order of divisions, like flyweight and bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight. I mean, you could switch lightweight and featherweight maybe. I would easily do all the Jackson fighters cast. I mean, there's still a variety. Wash Dodson made Morabko 2-20 on takedowns. Valid. Khamzat's team demanding a rematch in Abu Dhabi's peaks communist, basically admitting they want Rick setting. Valid. That's on the White House presser. I didn't even watch it, not gonna lie. I just didn't care. Couple TKO Van within the first round. I mean, I would be pretty shocked if Cop was the one to do it. Because, like, when looking at Cop, he's going to... Let me see. Let's pull up his fight record. Okay, win against Royval. We all knew that was going to happen. Royval's way too hittable and chinny. Takes Almabayev into round 3 and finishes him via eye pokes. Finishes Bruno Silva with a groin shot. And I didn't care, to be honest, because he also got groin shot himself multiple times in that fight. But, like, he had to finish Bruno Silva with a groin kick. Lost to Makayev, which was... He could have won. Hard to say. That's whatever. Takes Felipe dos Santos to a competitive 29-28 decision. He's having trouble in the striking against Felipe dos Santos, by the way. Then you go much further back, and he has a loss to Mateusz Nikolay. What makes Lunar a nightmare matchup for Ben? He's extremely fast, and his counter hook is going to cause problems for Van if he tries to enter recklessly like he often does. Jackson podcast is hilarious. Luke Rockhold is calling Noel Romero scumbag who cheats with PEDs. We'll sit next to TJ. That's wild. Cobb is this real gun of 125. I mean, at least Cobb is somewhat skilled, right? But he definitely does foul a lot. Do you rate the strength and conditioning training? I mean, it's a controversial topic, right? A lot of people are going to pretend there's one right way to do it or wrong way to do it. I do have my opinions. I feel that hypothetically, pushing yourself in training camp that hard is feasible. It is viable because you could squeeze a little bit more performance out, and there are a lot of fighters who have had success with that ideology. I do also think, though, it is burning the candle at both ends, and it's not very sustainable over a longer period of time. So I feel like you shouldn't go as crazy, but I'm not going to say it's like explicitly wrong if you do. What do you think of Jose Choi? I think he's future top 5. Yeah, I agree. What do you think is the reason of Hamzat's cardio problems? I mean, he's just fast twitch. Diaz versus Perry card predictions. I mean, I can't pretend I've done any tape for that, so. I mean, if we want to just make predictions for no reason, let me look at the card. Again, I haven't made any tape, so like at your own risk if you want to bet on it for some reason. I'd say Jenkins, Eileen Pereira, David, however you say his last name. I don't even know who these guys are. I'll take the guy with the better record and say Jeff whatever. Who's this guy? I don't even know who the guy who's fighting Marais is, not gonna lie. We'll skip that. Alright, let's go to the main card. Realistically, Dead Spain should probably beat a very old JDS, but I'm rooting for JDS. Ngannou should knock out Lins in round 1. Rousey should get a first round submission. The tough one to pick is Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. I'm gonna... I'll say Nate Diaz, but who knows? Yeah, that's fair. I do need to watch his tape. I have definitely seen some of it before, it's just not in a while. But it's like the KSW guys, like, I mean, he should definitely win this one, don't get me wrong, but the KSW guys, like, I guess Gamrot is the only good one who came out of that. Unless I'm forgetting someone. And to be fair, he did knock out Rishala. Random question, but have you ever explained why the UFC 210 cage was / is your backdrop? Oh, that's the only one I could find that like they were offering a cheap license for. So I just took that and modified it and then used that as like, I don't know what to put as the backdrop, so I'm just going to take a cheap license I could buy for a few dollars. Alright, I'm probably going to wrap things up here. One more time, if you guys are considering betting on this card, do consider joining the betting service. Link is in the description here, or DM me on Instagram with any questions. Hope you guys have a good night and enjoy this card if you're watching, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you for coming. See you guys next time.